Welcome! NOAA has just released its global climate update for June of 2022, and this video is a summary of that report. A quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. June of 2022 was the sixth warmest June on record. That's of 143. La Nina is still present. It may go on through autumn, even into the winter of this year, but is weakening slowly, so therefore we may be in ENSO neutral conditions from there on. Arctic is the 10th lowest June sea ice extent on record. Antarctic, on the other hand, is the lowest June sea ice on record. Now, this is actually a reversal of roles. The Arctic has been the one leading the way of loss of sea ice. Now the Antarctic seems to be taking over. It's odd that they seem to be in antiphase with one another. Atmospheric carbon dioxide reached an all-time record of 420.99 parts per million. That tied May's record. Let's look how these temperatures and other events spread out by continent. North America was characterized by heavy rain and snow melt, which produced a large number of floods, particularly in places like Montana. Europe had its second hottest June on record, as did Asia. Africa was the 10th hottest, and South America had about average temperatures. New Zealand had its 8th hottest June on record. Overall temperatures were fairly high. Globally, as I said, it was the 6th hottest, but that's at 0.87 degrees centigrade above the 20th century average. Land was 1.13 degrees centigrade, and oceans 0.71 degrees centigrade above the 20th century average. Those were 2nd and 5th place respectively. The Northern Hemisphere was 1.12 degrees centigrade above the average, and was in 5th place. The Southern Hemisphere was 0.62 degrees centigrade, and that was 7th place. We can look on the right here of how these records were distributed. Please note that record lows are marked by this dark blue color on the left. There are no dark blue pixels in this map. In fact, there are precious few, much cooler than average pixels. High temperature records are indicated by this dark red shown on the right, and there are a large number of pixels that are showing that particular color. There is also a large number of much warmer than average pixels on the map, showing the general warming trend across the planet. I've put in this matrix how June fared at 6th hottest compared with previous Junes and the rest of the calendar. The question that is arising here is 2022 going to become the 6th warmest year on record or the 7th warmest year on record? It seems to be beating 2021 marginally at the moment, but there's a long way to go as yet. Well, let's move away from surface temperatures and go up into the upper atmosphere. This is the lower troposphere, which has got an average altitude of about 4 kilometers. This is the data from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. You can see in the last month, temperatures have decreased slightly according to the UAH model, but it's still above average. Now, this average is the 1991 to 2020 average, so it includes an awful lot of global warming already in it. The long-term trend of this data is still 0.14 degrees centigrade per decade, so it's showing a distinct warming trend even over the relatively short time that it has been in operation. So let's take a look at sea ice, which is one of the things that people like to focus on for some obscure reason. The Arctic sea ice was at its 10th lowest for month of June. You can see the plot here. It's still well below average. Trend looks as though it's still continuing to be down when you take it over several years. Now, the surprise too, as I alluded earlier, is that the Antarctic posted a record low in terms of sea ice. You can see it here on the far right. The Antarctic has been generally the odd man out from the fact that it seems to be adding sea ice for many years. The last few years, it has been below average there, but the average is still an increase over a long period of time of about 0.4% per decade. But nonetheless, it seems to be waking up to the fact that the oceans are warming and causing sea ice to melt. The thing that changes short-term climate most of all is the El Nino La Nina cycle. And the La Nina that we've been in for several years now seem to be persisting much longer than we thought they would, but they are weakening, and you can see from the model here that they expect them to veer into ENSO neutral country by the beginning of next year. So that will have major changes to the world's climate as a result. As I mentioned before, atmospheric carbon dioxide set a new record. It reached 420.99 parts per million. That's an increase of 0.205 parts per million compared with the same time last year. So in summary then, La Nina is hanging in longer than was expected and may persist to the end of the year. Globally, it's been the 6th hottest June on record, which means that goes back to about 1850. Global sea ice extent was the 2nd lowest on record overall, adding the Arctic and the Antarctic together. But the surprise, as I said, was the Antarctic boasted the lowest sea ice extent that we've ever recorded there. And in spite of all the efforts by various countries, CO2 reached a new record high this last June, and I see no reason why that trend will not continue for the foreseeable future. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please post them in the box below. So until next time, stay safe and goodbye.